80 years of social service in Houston.
CBS Late Night will be seen following this CBS News special report.
I never carried out a single act, not one, Mr. Niels, in which I did not have authority from my superiors. I haven't, in the 23 years that I have been in the uniformed services of the United States of America, ever violated an order. Not one.
This is a CBS News special report. Oliver North tells his story. From Capitol Hill, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening from the nation's capital. This was a day so many people were waiting for, and tomorrow will be another. Oliver North testifying under oath about how and why U.S. weapons came to be sold to Iran, where the money went, and who knew about it. North was armed with a grant of limited immunity from prosecution as he began his testimony here on Capitol Hill to the special Iran-Contra committees of the Congress. There was tension, there were sharp exchanges, high emotion, suspense, and one of the key questions that have been so much in the news for months.
One question the American people would like to know the answer to is, what did the president know about the diversion of the proceeds of Iranian arms sales to the Contras? Can you tell us what you know about that, sir?
I never personally discussed the use of the residuals or profits from the sale of U.S. weapons to Iran for the purpose of supporting the Nicaraguan resistance with the president. I never raised it with him, and he never raised it with me during my entire tenure at the National Security Council staff. Throughout the conduct of my entire tenure at the National Security Council, I assumed that the president was aware of what I was doing and had, through my superiors, approved it. I sought approval of my superiors for every one of my actions, and it is well documented.
You wrote memoranda, did you not, seeking the president's approval for the diversion?
I did.
Where are these memoranda?
Which memoranda?
The memoranda that you sent up to Admiral Poindexter seeking the president's approval.
Well, they're probably in these books to my left that I haven't even looked through yet, and I'm going to, if I try to guess, I'm going to be wrong. But I think I shredded most of that. Did I get them all? I'm not trying to be flippant, I'm just...
Well, that was going to be my very next question, Colonel North. Isn't it true that you shredded them?
I believe I did.
Did you discuss the wisdom of putting out a false version of the facts with Admiral Poindexter?
I may have. I don't recall a specific discussion with it. Again, it was, he and I knew what had transpired back in November of '85. He and I knew that this version of the document was wrong, intentionally misleading.
Isn't it true, and I'll put it that others above you, by putting out this version of the facts, were committing the President of the United States to a false story?
Yes, that's true.
Did you ever say to any of those people, you can't do that without asking the President?
No, I did not.
Did you ever say, you can't do that, it's not true, and you cannot commit the President of the United States to a lie?
I don't believe that I ever said that to anyone, no.
Did anybody else in your presence say that?
No.
So none of these people, Director of Central Intelligence, 2 national security advisors, attorney general. None of them ever made the argument, it's not true, you can't say it.
No, and
By putting out this false version of the facts, you were committing, were you not, the entire administration to telling a false story.
I realize there's a lot of folks around that think there's a loose cannon on the gun deck estate at the NSC. That wasn't what I heard while I worked there. I've only heard it since I left. People used to walk up to me and tell me what a great job I was doing. And the fact is, there were many, many people, to include the former Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, the current National Security Advisor, the Attorney General of the United States of America, the Director of Central Intelligence, all of whom knew that to be wrong.
Colonel North insisted that he always acted with the approval of his superiors. But it appears, Colonel North made it appear, that still left him a lot of room to make his own decisions, especially about use of the money from the sale of U.S. weapons to the Iranians. North was asked about where the first $1 million went that went into a secret Swiss bank account.
What was your authority for using that money for the Contras?
Well, I don't know that I actually had any in specific.
And I take it what you're saying now is that you had, with respect to that, the use of that $1 million for the Contras, you had not sought or received any approval from people higher in the U.S. government.
I don't know that I did. I'm not saying I didn't. I think I may have apprised Admiral Poindexter at some point that I'd done that, but I did not. I do not have a specific recall of that at this point, no.
In some of the most dramatic and emotional testimony of the day, Colonel North chided Congress for cutting off aid to the Nicaraguan rebels. Congress doesn't always take kindly to being chided by lieutenant colonels. North described efforts to get other countries to help the Contras. One of those countries was referred to today as country number 3, but it's widely reported to be Taiwan, the Republic of China.
You then sent Mr. Owen with an account number so that the officials of country 3 would know where to send the money.
I recall that happening.
And those accounts had been set up at your suggestion.
Absolutely. As part of a covert operation to support the Nicaraguan resistance.
To receive monies to support the Nicaraguan resistance.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't under the control of the Nicaraguans.
No.
It was under the control of Secord, who was responding to your direction.
I'm not sure that a major general is going to be happy with saying the words responding to my direction. General Secord was indeed cooperating in every way that I asked him to.
Well,
yes.
Who was in charge? You were a government official. He was not. He's a major general. You're a lieutenant colonel. Are you telling this committee that because he had a higher rank when he was with the government, that he was the boss?
Well, he was the boss of what? He was the boss of the organizations and the commercial enterprises that he set up to assist the Nicaraguan resistance, and that I eventually asked him to expand out into other covert operations, and he did those things.
Well, he did those at your request, did he not?
That's correct. Somehow or another, we've tried to create the impression that Oliver North picked up his hat and wandered around Washington and foreign capitals begging for money, and I didn't do that. I didn't have to do it, because others were more willing to put up the money than the Congress, because they saw well what was happening to us in Central America.
As the hour of Oliver North's testimony approached, there was a lot of speculation about whether he'd tell the truth. One poll even suggested that more than half the American people expected him to lie. Few people got closer to North today than Senator Daniel Inouye, the Iran-Contra Committee chairman, and Senator Warren Rudman, the vice chairman. A short while ago, I asked both of them, was North believable?
I hate to pass judgment at this stage because I would expect the colonel to be a witness all this week and possibly part of next week. There were moments that surprised me because of what he said, and I thought he was rather honest, for example, saying that someone always directed him or ordered him to do whatever he did, that he was not the one who had the initiative or the formulating policymaker. Secondly, the way he went after the Attorney General, almost with a vengeance, surprised me. And I don't think a man who lies would do that. And third, when he made it very clear that he had control over the Swiss bank accounts, that also surprised me. And obviously, when someone is on the verge of being indicted, as I'm certain the independent counsel has in mind, he has to be careful. And he would, try to walk that very narrow path so that he would not be cited for perjury, but at the same time not disclose as much as he should. And so, taking all these things in consideration, I would say that today he was pretty honest.
Senator Rudman, you're a Republican. You're an independent senator. What are we dealing with here? Is this man believable or not? What about North's credibility?
Dan, I think you always look at the circumstances in which testimony is given, and the circumstances of Colonel North is he's under limited use immunity. He does face possible serious problems with the independent counsel. There would be a disincentive for him to lie to this committee, because as he said many times today, I don't know what you have in your files, Mr. Niels, but this is my recollection. There's an incentive for him on the major issues to tell the truth, because the one thing he doesn't want to face is a perjury charge. I thought he was candid today on a number of issues. Where I had a problem with his testimony today was on the excuse for the shredding and the fairy tale about the Spitz Channel fundraising organization, which I thought was just unbelievable, where you have kind of a two-part transaction that's separated. We all knew that was a completed transaction. But on the substance, on authority, on the president, I thought he was being truthful today.
Senator, you're a former attorney general or a prosecutor in that sense. What question would you ask Colonel North? He's here, you're there. What do you want to know from him?
Well, I am going to ask him some questions probably the day after tomorrow, and I don't want to telegraph them all to you, Dan, but let me just observe that it seems to me that I want to get down to a lot more specificity as to what his authority was as to scope and as to how he implemented that. I have thought for a long time that a lieutenant colonel of the Marine Corps did not suddenly become a policymaker in the United States, that he was, in fact, acting under authority. But I'd like to know the limits of the authority and how much follow-up there was. I get the feeling that they told North, take that hill, and North took that hill. I think there's much blame to be assessed on his superiors. I felt that from the very beginning, more than maybe on Colonel North.
Senator Inouye, President Reagan kept saying during the day, North has exonerated me. True?
I think it's too early to say that.
Do you agree, Senator?
I agree. I think that John Poindexter, who was the National Security Advisor with almost unlimited access to the President, and Don Regan, his Chief of Staff during this time, must be heard from. And their testimony, I'm sure, will be interesting and I think illuminating.
Senator, we don't have long left, but you've mentioned a couple of times you thought today's testimony was very important as regards Attorney General Meese. Why?
Because the impression that the Attorney General has left for all of us is that he found out about these doings on or about November of last year. Now, he's involved in the chronologies long before then. He apparently took part in the discussions on hostages for arms. And so I think he'll have a lot to clarify for us.
Senator Inouye, Senator Rudman, thank you very much for being with us. And when we come back, we will talk with a man who knows a lot about covert operations, former Secretary of State and former NSC advisor Henry Kissinger. So stay here with us.
Did you know the last time you starved yourself to lose fat, you might have lost muscle? Why? You didn't eat enough protein. Protein helps you keep the muscle while you lose fat. And that's what's special about Kellogg's Special K. It has the highest level of dietary protein of any cereal. So the under 200-calorie Special K breakfast may help you get the fat off and keep the muscle on. Special K. Keep the muscle, lose the fat.
See these ordinary red stickers? Well, they're red, but ordinary? No. See, Publishers Clearinghouse is giving away a $10 million super prize. Now, no one else is going to tell you this, But these stickers could mean a whole other $1 million if you hurry. You'll only find your sticker inside the Publishers Clearinghouse envelope. So, look for the house, find your sticker, and if you win, remember, you heard it here.
Medical news from Nuprin.
Moments ago, a medical study reported the best news for tough headaches in over 10 years. Beyond regular strength aspirin, beyond extra strength Tylenol, there's a higher level of pain relieving strength, Nuprin strength. 2 little Nuprin are stronger than extra strength Tylenol, so Nuprin stops headaches better. And remember, Nuprin is gentler to your stomach than aspirin. For strength beyond extra strength Tylenol, Nuprin strength.
How come your coffee is darker than mine?
Mine's decaffeinated Folgers Crystals. Yours is the decaffeinated brand you've been drinking for years.
Mine's lighter looking.
See these dark, sparkling crystals made from Folgers mountain-grown coffee.
It smells really rich.
Alice, looks and aroma are one thing, but how does it taste?
Have a sip.
Mountain grown. Alice, you're right, as usual.
Now I know why I married you. You're so sensible.
Decaffeinated Folgers Crystals. So dark and rich. Shouldn't you switch?
As the day started, one of the questions was, did Oliver North shred evidence? Not only did North admit to shredding stacks of secret documents to hide the operations he was running from the White House, North said today he saw nothing wrong with that. And again, he tried to lecture Congress today about why his covert operations, as he called them, in his view, had to stay hidden at all costs.
The reason for shredding documents and the reason the government of the United States gave me a shredder, I mean, I didn't buy it myself, was to destroy documents that were no longer relevant, that did not apply or that should not be divulged. And again, I want to go back to the whole intent of a covert operation. Part of a covert operation is to offer plausible deniability of the association of the government of the United States with the activity. I started shredding documents in earnest after a discussion with Director Casey in early October when he told me that Mr. Furmark had come to him and talked to him about the use of Iran arms sales money to support the resistance. That followed shortly, was preceded shortly by the crash or shoot down of the aircraft Mr. Hassenfuss was on. And Director Casey and I had a lengthy discussion about the fact that this whole thing was coming unraveled and that things ought to be, quote, cleaned up.
Cleaning things up was easier said than done. North didn't know it at the time, but the National Security Council Computer Message Center, the system, the whole computer system he was using, called the PROF system for short, PROF, was not erasing all the secret messages North thought he was getting rid of.
We all sincerely believed that when we sent a PROF's message to another party and punched the button delete, that it was gone forever. Wow, were we wrong.
Are you also saying that if it was gone from the system, that you could pretend it never happened?
No, that's not what I said, Counsel.
Well, who was in charge? I'm asking you whether the United States government retained control over this covert operation.
I tried to, Counsel. Tried to. And the fact is, I'm sending my boss what I thought was going to be a very private note, and I was asking him for guidance.
And he certainly didn't tell you to stop.
Why would he? We were conducting a covert operation to support the Nicaraguan resistance, to carry out the President of the United States' stated, publicly articulated foreign policy.
At one point, Colonel North said that he doesn't know if what he shredded included papers where President Reagan possibly had checked an approval box sent to him with an explanation and a note. He just said he didn't know whether that was included in the material that had been shredded. Joining us now from our New York studios, a man who is no stranger to national security concerns and covert operations, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Dr. Kissinger, thank you for being with us this evening. The way Colonel North describes it, this was just another covert operation with all the precautions that one would normally take with such an operation. Was this just another covert operation?
Well, I think the mistake that was made was to put a covert, the execution of a covert operation into the National Security Council.
as a general rule, at least in my experience, covert operations were conducted by the CIA. Approval was given at the National Security Council level, but the actual execution was in the Central Intelligence Agency. And I don't think that the National Security Council has the personnel, the staff, or the experience to handle this. And this is what I believe the basic problem was, and why I, in a way, feel very sorry for Ali North, that he was given an assignment that no one man could carry out, and certainly another lieutenant colonel at his level of experience.
Does this kind of operation go on all the time, the NSC being this operational?
No. As I said, I know no case in which the National Security Council, the NSC staff, was given actual control of an operation and actually carried out the operation. What usually happens is that the National Security Council approves the operation, but then the execution, the operation of it, is in the hands of the Central Intelligence Agency. I know no example of the actual execution of a covert operation, at least not in my day, being from the office of the National Security Council, which doesn't really have the staff and indeed the experience to do it.
Dr. Kissinger, why would the NSC be given this kind of operation, selling missiles to the Iranians and wheeling and dealing with money?
Well, I have the... normally, it wouldn't be given to the NSC. The NSC should be weighing alternatives for the president and preparing the options, and occasionally perhaps conduct a limited negotiation. I think in this particular case it happened in order to avoid the problem of testifying before congressional committees. And here again, I have a certain amount of sympathy in the sense that so many of these covert operations get public as soon as you do testify. So you either have the choice of abandoning covert operations or trying to find a way around it. I'm not trying to justify it, but as far as I can understand, that was the reason why it was put in the National Security Council, which is not equipped to do this.
Dr. Kissinger, in brief and in short, do we have a constitutional problem here or not?
I think we have a constitutional problem in the sense that there seems to me to be a deadlock between the executive branch and the Congress, in which the Congress tries to restrict the executive branch without ever stopping it from doing what it is doing by a series of amendments. The executive branch, on the other hand, takes what it thinks it can get without ever stating its full objectives. And I believe we will not be able to continue to conduct foreign policy unless there is a greater harmony between the executive and the legislative branches, a clearer definition by the executive of where it is going, and some restraint by the Congress in confining itself to policy direction rather than a detailed tactical prescription. And this is independent of what may have been violated in this case, and certainly there were many mistakes made.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kissinger. In a moment, our veteran Capitol Hill correspondent Phil Jones joins us for a review of North's testimony today and what to look for tomorrow.
Come, my little apprentice, let's eat. Ah, Peter, do we ever cover steak with ketchup?
No, Father, but it's hamburger.
Ah, but hamburger is steak. It's chopped steak, so we use...
A1 steak sauce.
Right. And it's A1's herbs and spices that make hamburgers taste like...
Steak burgers.
Don't cover it. Discover it with A1.
And we'll save the ketchup for the fries.
Good.
There's only one of these in the whole world.
You gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what a crunch. That's unreal.
Oh, it's not unreal. It's all natural.
You said there was only one of these.
I meant that one-of-a-kind nutty taste.
I was going to say nutty. What are these?
Give you a hint.
Nuts. Grape nuts.
The one and only.
Post Grape Nut cereal.
I'll guard this box with my life.
Don't cover up the name.
Right now, somewhere, there's someone like you. Someone who really wants to light up. And they're reaching out, not for a cigarette, but for help to quit from the Cancer Information Service's free helpline, 1-800-4-CANCER. So don't light up. It's for you. Call up. Hello?
Summer sun and outdoor fun are a natural combination. This summer, why not use good sun sense to protect your skin? The American Cancer Society suggests covering up with light-colored clothing, limiting your sun exposure between 10 and 3, and for active adults and children, wearing a waterproof sunscreen with an SPF of 15. Summer fun and sun sense go hand in hand. So remember to protect yourself and your family this summer.
Others may or may not agree, but in his own mind today, Oliver North came out of the hearing room and rated himself with a thumbs up. Capitol Hill correspondent Phil Jones, what about that? And what about tomorrow? Did Oliver North do all that well today? And what will he face tomorrow? What should we be looking and listening for?
Well, Dan, in your earlier interview with Senators Inouye and Rudman, both of them indicated that they thought North did pretty well today and that he was trying to tell the truth. But he has many hard times ahead. The two chief counsels for the House and Senate committees have sort of a good cop, bad cop routine. John Niels, who is the chief counsel for the House, comes with the straightforward questions, as he's doing with North, to try to lay out the story and get the facts. This will be followed by very fierce cross-examination from Arthur Lyman, who is the chief counsel for the Senate committee. And also, North is going to have trouble with the members. They have heard so many stories about lies by North and exaggerations by him that he does have a real credibility problem, and so far in one day, he has really not repaired that. I think that what you're probably going to see, Dan, as North goes through his testimony and as Poindexter comes up next, a theme start to develop to explain just how this whole operation got dumped in the laps of those who were at the National Security Council. According to one committee member, he says that we're going to start to see the real problem that was going on. And that was that President Reagan was not able to control his foreign policy machinery. He had constant feuding, according to this source, between Secretaries Schultz and Weinberger at Defense. He just couldn't control it, so in the end, all the tough jobs got thrown to the NSC.
Thanks, Phil. We look forward to working with you again tomorrow. Joining me now is another man who's been watching and listening in the hearing room and who'll be leading some of the direct question of North as we proceed through the week. That would be United States Senator George Mitchell of Maine. Senator, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Dan.
I know, among other things, that you're a former judge. Help me help our audience to understand this business of the memos. Now, at one point, Oliver North indicated today presidential approval was sought yes, for 5 memos. Only one such memo had we heard about or known about before. Why is this important, and where may it lead?
Well, of course, it's important because it would be, if it existed, the only documentary evidence to prove or disprove that the president had personally approved or disapproved or took no action on the diversion. That was a part of the memorandum. As Colonel North pointed out, it was a comprehensive memo describing the entire transaction. Included was a section dealing with that. And at the end of it, there's a recommendation and a box for the president. One says approve, one says disapprove. On 5 occasions, North sent such memos to Poindexter, specifically requesting the president's approval. North later destroyed all of the documents and claims now that he cannot recall whether or not the president had checked the approval box on those documents.
Now, there was mention of another memo, apparently another memo. I want to try to understand this, that Colonel North said he saw a presidential approval.
Yes.
A presidential approval in 1984, it was. Correct me if I'm wrong about the date. What's all that about?
That's very significant. I have a copy of it right here. It's a declassified document. It's a presidential finding. It's the document that creates the legal authority for action by government officials, in this case, the CIA. The significance of this document is that it is very short. There's only one operative paragraph. It is exclusively a hostage for arms swap. That's what this authorizes. This was in the fall of 1985, the first finding. The original of this document has not been found. There will be further testimony on that subject. Colonel North is the first person to testify that he saw this document with Ronald Reagan's signature on it. If, in fact, President Reagan did sign this document, then it makes clear that he knew at the very outset that this entire transaction was nothing more than an arms for hostages swap.
All right, it was 1985, not 1984. Yes. Sometimes this material is as hard to follow as the explanation of Einstein's theory of relativity. Very quickly, Senator, you think that Attorney General Meese's involvement is very important. Why?
Well, Colonel North said something very startling today. He said that the Attorney General of the United States, the chief law enforcement of this country, knowingly participated in the preparation of false testimony to be given to the Congress and the American people by the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency and the President's National Security Advisor. That's the first time that allegation has been made, and Colonel North was very emphatic about it. You ran a segment of that earlier tonight. Now, I frankly find that incredible. I'm not a fan of Ed Meese's, but to think that an Attorney General of the United States would knowingly and actively participate in the preparation of false testimony on a very important matter involving possible legality. The reason for the falsification of the chronology and the testimony was the concern that the prior events were illegal. And if that's true, it's a very serious matter. Now, Colonel North said he was concerned about those who said things, snippets of evidence, he called it, and raised doubts about his credibility. We should afford Attorney General Meese the same courtesy. We have to wait to hear from him, but that's a question he will be asked and must be asked.
Senator, we look forward to your questioning and the hearings as they continue tomorrow. Thanks for being with us tonight. President Reagan has been saying that he's as eager as anyone else to hear Oliver North's story. However, President Reagan never actually ordered North to tell him what happened. And the president put out the word today that he wasn't watching North's testimony. White House correspondent Bill Plant, what's going on here?
Well, Dan, the president's trying to keep his distance from this whole thing and to demonstrate that it's business as usual here at the White House. Despite all of the attention focused on the hearings, Mr. Reagan has maintained for months that he didn't know any more than the rest of us, and today he didn't even watch. To demonstrate that the hearings are not distracting the president, administration officials have scheduled a trip to Connecticut tomorrow to press his economic agenda. But political pros don't think it will shift the focus from the hearings.
It's going to be very difficult. I think in one sense it's good for the president to get out around the country. It makes him feel good. He's preaching the gospel that he appreciates. But obviously the agenda is going to be controlled here in Washington.
And in Washington, the hearings are topic A. There are standing instructions at the White House not to watch them. But people were glued to the screen in many other government offices.
I know we should finish this quickly here so we can get back to television.
White House officials think that this was a good day for the president. Good because North testified that Mr. Reagan didn't know about the money. And as for North saying that he was assuming that everything that he was doing was approved by his superiors, including the president, a senior official here at the White House said, "We don't comment on North's assumptions." But they're much more concerned here about the testimony next week of Admiral John Poindexter, who was North's immediate boss, and the man who got the memos which North wanted forwarded to the president. Dan?
Thanks, Bill. No question, day one of Oliver North's testimony is a high-impact story here in the nation's capital. But what about America out there beyond the Potomac? A look when we come back.
Okay, honey.
Can you tell who hasn't had their Kellogg's Bran Flakes?
Hang in there, honey.
Well, some people feel a little sluggish if they're not eating a balanced diet.
Oh, boy, am I sluggish.
Kellogg's are the only Bran Flakes with fiber and a full day supply of iron to help balance your diet. And that's one great way to help fight that sluggish feeling. So maybe you can tell who hasn't had their Kellogg's Bran Flakes
Great shot, honey.
and who has. Kellogg's Bran Flakes, the fiber and iron cereal.
I can't sleep, and I've got the world's worst day tomorrow.
Oh, then you better get some Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's. Come on, Nitol. Give me some Z's. Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Nitol helps you feel drowsy so you can fall asleep fast and get your Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
What got all this glass so clean with so little effort? SOS Glassworks. It's made with vinegar, not ammonia, and works fast and easy on even the greasiest dirt, and gets everything shiny and streak-free. What's more, Glassworks with vinegar cleans tough smudges with less work than Windex with ammonia. SOS Glassworks with vinegar, the less work glass cleaner that works too well.
Imagine how good it would feel to be regular for the rest of your life.
Time to run, boy?
You could be. Irregularity is often due to a lack of fiber, and doctors recommend Metamucil fiber by name. They know how effective use of natural Metamucil can be. Ask your doctor.
Baby Sparky would like to sleep in this morning.
Metamucil, and you could be regular for the rest of your life.
There's no getting around it, and no one tried to. Oliver North's long-awaited appearance before the Iran-Contra hearings was the talk of this town today, Washington, D.C. But sometimes you have to stop and wonder, does anyone else really care? To try to put in perspective what's happening here on the Hill, you have to get a long way away from it, as Bob McNamara did today.
The wheat harvest. On the plains all around Goodland, Kansas, it's the busiest time of the year. And getting the crop out of the field and making it pay, that was the talk of the day.
Most of the talk in a rural community like this is economics, local economics. There really isn't too much that we can do on the national level, so we just try to solve our own little problems here the best we can.
In Goodland today, life was like it usually is, Oliver North or not.
There's just too many other things to do, and why get wrapped up in something that we can't control anyway?
At Caldwell Appliance, Oliver North was testifying on the TV set On Sale, but they weren't watching.
No, I didn't turn it on knowing that he was going to be on or caring whether he was going to be on. I'd rather have a good ball game or something like that.
Today, the big news in the Daily News was last night's City Commission meeting. Oliver North was second. T.D. Dreiling has watched and written about Goodland more than 20 years.
Right now, I think people view it more as a soap opera more than anything. You know, who is the crook in the plot?
But some stayed home watching North's testimony if they could.
I think he's under a lot of pressure is what I think. You can tell it in his face.
You believe him?
Yes, I believe him.
In thousands of towns like Goodland today, Iran, Nicaragua have always been exotic, faraway places and still are. And here, where people are rarely questioned in surveys, not counted in opinion polls, issues are still bread and butter, not Iran-Contra.
And it's going to be very difficult to recruit industry or even a business.
Today, Goodland's Chamber of Commerce began a push to lure new industry. Unemployment here is forcing people to leave. On land where grain does grow in amber waves, there's a sense out here that while the hard work goes on, something in Washington's gone wrong.
After it's all said and done, what's going to happen? Are they going to really accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, or is it just going to fall by the wayside?
The harvest running in the heat of summer, that's what's important now. The first order of business here is business close to home.